People today are living really longer than almost any other time in history. And yet, are they healthy and vibrant and alive the whole time they're living? We are diving into that today, being proactive so you can have longevity plus a healthy, robust life while you're alive. Danny, welcome to the Interstate. What can you share about this?
Thanks for having me, Bridget. Longevity was a journey that I only went on personally about 4 years ago. It wasn't, I can't say I was treating my body and mind the best. I was working a pretty rigorous job.
Mm-hmm.
For me, a catalyzing moment was 4 years ago when my fiance was misdiagnosed, had to have an emergency surgery. When she advocated for herself to get a scan after being told to go home by a leading hospital system, and found out that she was septic, that her appendix had ruptured days prior, and that she had, E. coli growing. And it was a pretty emotional moment for me, shaped by growing up with my father having multiple sclerosis, ultimately being diagnosed with cancer, being told he was cancer-free, being diagnosed with cancer again, being told that he was cancer-free, and then dying a month later.
Ugh.
I think that the more we do this, it's clear everyone has their own personal or familial stories having to do with healthcare, having to do with the U.S. healthcare system.
Right.
And I think things just compounded for me until there was that breaking point with my now fiance, which made me introspectively start thinking about longevity and preventative health instead of reactive health. So
that's right.
We're so used to going to a doctor when we're sick, getting a pill for it, instead of saying, well, what's the root cause of the problem?
And it's really changed your whole life.
It has. I would say that the initial results when I went through my personal longevity story with my two co-founders weren't great, because what I found were there aren't many options that are efficacious, safe, and accessible. So This was kind of the primary problem, was deeply understanding the issues surrounding clinical grade supplementation, absorption rates, understanding what you're getting. And then when you start going into like drip therapies and other expensive solutions, understanding that they're not regulated. There are no requirements to have potency or sterility. There are no doctors involved. They cost a fortune. To do some of these treatments, it was $5,000 a month. And it wasn't informed decision-making, which is why, after a long time of trying to figure it out ourselves, we decided to leave our jobs and start ReadyRx, was to create an accessible platform for preventative and proactive health for longevity so that people can have decision-making control, get back into that driver's seat.
And hopefully have more accessibility.
Yeah, that's the big issue, right? Is there are solutions out there outside of the quality question. They're egregiously expensive, and they're really intended for the 0.1%. I wouldn't even say they're for the 1%.
Right. Yes, it's really an issue. So looking at some of the changes this made in your life, you became passionately dedicated to exploring proactive medical care, proactive health decisions, conversations rather than reactive. And you now are co-founder of ReadyRx, ReadyRx.com, and CEO.
Yeah, which is I came from investment banking, private equity.
That was what I was going to ask you, is what did you do before?
I'm usually strapped to a desk thinking about specific companies financially, not deep in the operations, totally understanding the operations, understanding the KPIs, the drivers, but not there running the business, right? Alongside incredible management team. So this is a completely different undertaking and has lots of lessons learned, but it's just different. It's different also when you have the responsibility and weight on your shoulders of, whether it's personal financial, right? Because when you're a startup founder, you're not taking any salary for quite some time. And so what does that mean for your family and your cohort? And then you start having employees and people that you're beholden to, but you have a bigger mission. And if you fail, then you haven't succeeded and you're letting other people down. It's a lot to be able to go to sleep to, right? Like, I have this noise in my head, which is like, are you doing enough every night? And it's a burden, but I am grateful for it every day. And I have an incredible partners, incredible team, incredible life partner. And I don't think I could do it without all those pieces.
Back in the day when you were developing your career in finance, did you even think that you had an entrepreneurial bone in your body?
So the only inkling or reason why was I would say I started selling and doing things entrepreneurial when I was in elementary school. It went from finding a need for specific types of shoes that all of my peers loved and couldn't get their hands on because they were limited, and then buying them and selling it to friends. So I've always had this maybe entrepreneurial spirit, but I've been historically quite risk off. When I was 19 and still young, I'd say actually a year prior to that, I started missing high school, and it was permitted because I was working on a project at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory on alternative fuels.
Oh,
so
nice.
that was kind of already, I was looking to problem solve. And a year after that, I started my first business while in college, which came from, you're a native Angelino going back. I was on the 405 highway with my then business partner, and we were stuck behind a cement mixing truck during an era called Carmageddon. And we thought about how antiquated it was. And we developed a rollable concrete product. So we patented and developed an alternative to these big cement mixing trucks, which is a carpet that you roll out, you water it, and it hardens. And so this was my first time doing something different. But I ultimately had internships and got my first job. I didn't pursue that full time because I was quite risk off. So, I had some experience, but that never scaled to full blown operations and what that would look like. So I didn't think I would ever go back. The answer is I didn't think I would ever go back to being an entrepreneur.
However, it sounds like you always were an innovator.
I don't want to take credit for the technological innovation there. I had a brilliant partner who created it, but I've always wanted to solve problems.
So problem solving.
I myself am not necessarily the PhD or scientist behind that, but I always like to be involved in the management of major problem solving.
I think that's great. So when I think about what's possible and the impact ReadyRx can have on so many people, now that combination of your passion and that natural problem-solving skill is coming out in a way that I think could make a big difference.
That's what we hope. That's what we strive for. That's what we've been kind of working on, I guess, now for a little over 3 years. And the journey, like I said, started 4 years ago for us. But it's something that makes us happy every time that we, kind of wake up and realize what the day has ahead and in store for us. It's stress and joy.
Well, tell everyone, give us an idea of what ReadyRx actually does. Get into some of the nitty gritty.
Yeah. So we had to come to market with a solution to start providing benefits to customers. About a year and a half, a little over a year and a half ago, we came to market with our kind of V1 solution. And this year, the future iteration of that comes about, which we've been working on since day one. But V1, you realize that you have a problem. You might not know that you do, but you have symptoms of said problem. Now, that might be sleep issues, muscle retention and grip, energy, metabolic. So, plethora, it could be focus. All these are major issues, but you don't necessarily know how to think through them, approach them, or solve them. And so educating customers as to how their hormones and or their key nutrients, minerals, and vitamins in their body, their habits actually impact that. And then essentially providing a suggestion as to the highest and best pharmaceutical solution. So through our platform, for whatever that problem that you're trying to solve for might be, you'd be educated as to which product or which series of products might be best. You would then go through a qualification survey online and be connected with a medical doctor. And the medical doctor through our platform would seamlessly, from the comfort of your home, write a prescription. A partner pharmacy would create and compound the actual supplement for you, deliver it to your home. And then we have a team of health coaches, customer support folks, and unlimited access to doctor messaging. So that's how someone today live, and we're talking about tens of thousands of customers across the country, interact with us. The very soon short term is kind of the holistic view on health that we've always been pushing towards, which is you need to have information about you. You, Bridget, are very different than any other person. Right. And that requires a deeper understanding of your biomarkers. And so labs are a key component of everything. So it's including at, essentially similar to near similar costs and wearable data. So we will become the store of all of your health information, including old doctor's visits, and be able to help you understand yourself in a better way, help you prevent issues as they arise, and then help you optimize in a way that is pretty seamless to understand. It's not intended for someone who's very medical and can really break it down in a simple and easy way. So that's what 2026 looks like for us.
I think that sounds remarkable. And this sounds, if I'm hearing you correctly, this would be in conjunction with, say, if you get an annual physical, like
Yeah,
you
so
would do both. It would complement it, correct?
precisely. Yeah, and I would say, insurance is required. You get penalized if you don't have insurance in this country. And if you have covered, get all the care that you possibly can that's covered is my kind of sentiment. Furthermore, we'll never replace urgent care or acute care, right? So this is preventative and proactive, not urgent, right? And
It's
acute.
not, I broke my arm falling or I have a 104 fever. It's not for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like if you break your arm, our healthy aging supplementation and doctors asynchronously won't be able to service you. But the goal is to create better outcomes so that these chronic diseases minimize and you age and you feel better. You age in a better way, from skin to energy to hormone health. So all these are key components there. So yeah, that would be kind of, we'll never replace that doctor. And
That's right.
if you have covered visits for annual checkups, get as much as you can out of it. You're paying for it. Maximize it. But as it pertains to that full physical, the labs that you get through ReadyRx are more than twice of what's covered. So you'll
it'll be more in depth.
So much more in depth, and it's an insurance issue, unfortunately, the lack of coverage, right? So like you could ask your doctor to get what we offer. They would say likely that you would have to pay $700, $800, $900 out of pocket, depending on your case. It could be over $1,000, whereas it's less than 10% of that through us.
Okay, good.
I mean, the goal ultimately is the accessibility of everything that we do, and there are these hyper-specific programs for longevity that are 50,000. We'll never be that. That's not our goal. We want to provide the majority of the people a better outcome. That's our goal.
So I want to ask you a question. Let's say I do break my arm. Knock on wood. I don't want to break my arm. If I'm working with ReadyRx and I'm optimizing my bone health and my overall health, is it possible that although you guys are not treating my urgent emergency situation, that my recuperation may be better?
Yes.
I know there's no guarantee, but...
So now you're getting into two different topics, for me at least, that are super interesting and of the time. One is female bone density.
Yes.
This has to do with HRT. And long have we been told that HRT is bad. Now, prior to about 28 years ago or so, every single woman was taking some form of hormone replacement therapy. There was an FDA study and release that provided some black box warnings. It became infrequently used. Doctors stopped learning how to prescribe, and it created this vicious cycle. And we're so fortunate where last year there's been a reversal. Hormones and as you age play such a deep role in bone density. So your age, who you are, the type of therapies are very deeply personalized based on physicality, who you are, and how receptive. And there's no one size fits all solution. That's one element. Now there's the other element, which is, but I broke my arm. I'm sure you'll see all over the news. We've long been proponents of peptides and or other supplementations, which were banned, unfortunately, in 2024 from safe compounding. What that's allowed for is a massive black market of these peptides where people get them and create a little lab of their own at home in non-sterile environments, don't know what they're getting or where it comes from. Really unsafe. And there have been tremendous pushes to eliminate the black market and create safe opportunities for people who choose to utilize these.
Yes.
To have access to them. Now, there's a lot of research to continue to be done, but there are plethora of data that a couple of these that are now going to be put back into potential compounding would help with repair of injury. And athletes have long been using them, particularly from the black market, and prior to that, in safer ways.
It is funny, and that's one of the things that I was thinking about. All of us know from a young age, we hear about an athlete getting injured, and then, 10 days later, they're in the game again, and it's like, how'd they do that? So we've always known that there was something else out there that could help. So I'm glad that you all are obviously staying on top of that, and that when you'll be able, it could become part again of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's been We definitely think that we will be the national leaders in peptide therapies
Mm-hmm.
and these anti-aging and healthy aging and performance enhancing therapies because we will continue to offer them at the lowest cost to consumer with the highest sterility and product testing and holistic care with labs and doctors. So we're definitely the best position to be the leader nationally for this. At this time, we completely adhere to the law. Our pharmacy partners are tremendously compliant, so we don't have access to these. And unfortunately, we get asked by our customers all the time, can you get me this?
Right.
And we have to say at this time, unfortunately, no. So
We
we
cannot.
do look forward to being able to offer these products, hopefully in the short term.
When you think about the current landscape, it seems like there's always a fad or something that is noteworthy in the pharmaceutical world. Does ReadyRx have any feeling around GLP-1s or any of that huge wave that's occurring in our country right now?
Yes. So firstly, I'll speak not from ReadyRx and I'll speak
Okay.
as an individual. I
Okay.
am a consumer of GLP-1.
Mm-hmm.
I've lost over 35 pounds. My life was dictated by the food I would consume. So I had what people often refer to as food noise, which
Yes.
was as I was taking a bite of my In-N-Out burger, I was already thinking about, well, what's my next meal going to be? So I was not a consumer of the food. The food consumed me. And that was a daily struggle for me. So outside of maybe the fact that I was clinically based on my BMI overweight and now feel so much better. I will say that metabolically, I did everything I could before starting that GLP-1. I
Mm-hmm.
fasted, I worked out, and it's very controversial. So I know that there are a lot of people out there that say that was a cheat code, you took the easy way out. And I don't think that's the right approach because I don't think that everyone's metabolisms I know everyone's metabolism are not the same.
Are not the same. That's
So
right.
I would say to people who say that, just stay in your lane. If you believe that,
That's
great.
right.
But you don't
If
need
that
to
works for
make other
you,
people feel bad.
excellent. That's right.
Exactly. I'm not a proponent of the shaming. I don't know why that's become a thing in this culture. Accept people for who they are. If they realize that they need help to get to a goal, you should encourage them and make them feel good
Yes.
about that.
Yes.
This is personal.
Yes.
Now, from a ReadyRx perspective, ReadyRx is not a weight management business. We
Correct.
are a healthy aging and longevity business, and we have a massive metabolic epidemic nationally. We've had that for a long time. And while we are one of the top 3 richest countries in the world, we are one of the top 10 most unhealthy.
Yes.
All those are true. And the core problem isn't necessarily, GLP-1s are helping, but it doesn't address the core root of the problem, which is the food and habits that we, the people, have built and allowed for. Unfortunately, to have cost-effective food in the 90s and some periods slightly earlier than that as well, we
Right.
enabled a lot of chemicals and processed foods, and that's kind of sent us on a downwards. That's a different issue, and I think that people are becoming smarter to that, consuming healthier foods. And I hope that with AI and the changes in agriculture, we're going to lead to healthy foods becoming more accessible. That's the thing, right? But separate from that, GLP-1s are certainly helping with the metabolic crisis that we have here. And interestingly enough, it's crazy to see all this additional research coming out. Some are weight correlated issues, so sleep apnea, et cetera.
Oh, yes.
But some aren't. Some are just the way that it works on the receptors in your brain is it's addiction, right? So it's helping with alcoholism or sports gambling or whatever those issues might be. And as someone who's on it personally, I can speak personally, it's not suppressing my desires. It's not like I'm now some emotionless individual, right? So it's just making me not want to think about food all day or whatever that quote unquote addiction might be. So I think very positively of it. I think it's an important piece of the longevity and healthy aging equation. And that's why we offer it and think that the companies that are innovating, the pharmaceutical companies innovating in the space are absolutely incredible for their contribution to this country and the world.
Yes.
And I think that more and more positive research and news will come about these GLP-1s and their impacts on everyday life and health outside of weight.
Just the weight. Yeah. So,
Precisely.
and if I'm hearing you correctly, it did quiet the food noise in your mind.
Correct.
And that chatter, the constant chatter, has
And so,
quieted
like,
down.
just to be very clear about how this works, it's not just unfortunately, you take it once for some period of time and you're good. When we started, I told you I'd been traveling for the better half of a month.
Right.
And I wasn't on the GLP-1 during that time. And a couple weeks in, it started coming back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how it works, right? It's something that for those that think that they can get off of it, everyone's body and mind are different. And it's certainly a great catalyst. The way that it works on your receptors is once you get off of it, it stops blocking all those satiety fixes. So it will come back.
I feel that it's remarkable that this is real now. The whole time I was growing up and until just a few years ago, people would say things like, oh, if I could just take a pill, I'd do it, and it'd be right. And most of us, it was an easy thing to say because it didn't exist. And now it does. It's almost like you'll hear Gen Xers like myself saying, I want the world that was promised to me in the Jetsons and Star Trek, right? This is one that actually came true,
Yeah, we're the flying
that and cell phones. Yeah, we don't have the
Exactly.
flying cars, right? But
Exactly.
and I find it remarkable in that regard. And the fact that tying it back to ReadyRx and you as CEO of ReadyRx, I know I'm not a scientist nor a doctor, but it would seem to me that it's possible these GLPs are going to have a positive impact on longevity if someone who may have struggled with a manifestation of either morbid obesity or whatever it is, if they're able to rein that in and reclaim other areas of your life, there's a ripple effect. Then if they're able to be more active and focus on balance and have a better frame of mind, could that also tie in with longevity? I know it's early to know.
No, it's we already see the answers to that. So look, I would say a lot of folks that are not physically active is because it's difficult. The weight that they carry make it so that
that's right.
It's very difficult, not only physically because there's harm, but they get exhausted quicker, and mentally it's very difficult. And so certainly this helps catalyze that. I would say that with that being said, there's a large growing group of people nationwide and likely globally that do not have that overweight comorbidity who are taking it for inflammation and other, insulin sensitivity and other things that also are longevity markers that don't have it, right? So that goes back to what I was saying is I don't think this is pure 100% weight. Although that is the biggest issue, that is the biggest impact it's currently having at this moment in time.
Well, I agree with you. I think that the shaming should stop, and whomever chooses to do that and create that change in their life, then great. What we talked about for decades is actually real now.
Agreed. I want to double click into one thing that you said is with ReadyRx, we never tried to say, hey, this is that one Jetsons miracle solution. Right. And so why I say that is there are no cost things you can do in your life, which will 100% correlate to living a longer, healthier life. For example, changing your habits such that you're getting at least 7 hours of sleep every night consistently, that changes. That's free. And these healthy habits are very difficult for people to change. For myself as well, it's very difficult to change your habits. So one of the key things that we do at ReadyRx with health coaching and tracking tools, it's not just saying, here's your golden bullet, but rather this is a part of the story. Here are personalized meal plans, which we provide to each individual, personalized to them, so that you understand how much water you should be drinking in a day and what are the macros that you might want for different goals. It's more than just that. Not to suggest that we won't get to a place in 5 or 10 years time where there's maybe one vaccine that cures everything. That's not where we are today.
No. And I didn't take it that way either, that you were leaning in on it that heavily. I feel like you guys are treating it as an option in the toolkit. Like it's in the pantry of options that may be suitable for some. And not to belabor the point, but you said a key thing. You had tried so many things. So you had worked on, working out, fasting, you probably did intermittent, you probably did HIIT, you're doing these things and it wasn't giving you the results you desired. and then you chose this. If one of the other things had worked, then maybe you wouldn't have. And either way is great. How great that it's now an option that's there.
Correct. Yeah. I plateaued. I tried everything.
Yeah.
And, some people's response would be like, try harder. I'm not of that school and belief.
No,
but
I'm not either.
I appreciate their opinion and perspective.
I know. And it's funny, since we're sharing some personal thing, I realized somewhat inadvertently that if I am predominantly animal-based and more carnivore, my body functions beautifully, right? So similar type of thing. Had I not stumbled into that, I'm so delighted that I would have had that as an option or checked out, other things. But that
Exactly.
just...
What were you experiencing prior to changing your diet?
I went through a very stressful career change. Well, it was stressful before I decided to make the change, right? And then very funny. So it was a combination of once I had made that tough choice and I left a company that I thought I would retire from and started my own coaching company and launched the podcast. My body, I think I was really suffering from stress and cortisol, and I was deluding myself that I could compartmentalize and it wasn't going to impact me in any way. I was wrong. And so all of a sudden, I just started putting on weight that didn't quite make sense in correlation to not changing things in my life. Like, it didn't make any sense. And then I thought, I'm in my 50s. This is just what happens, But I knew from a young age that I always felt better when I had protein, when I had high protein. So even when I was a little kid, if I had pancakes, I would say like, I need bacon too, or I need eggs, and I wanted meat or high protein after I had something sweet. So I sort of have played with that throughout life. And it was last spring, it was a year ago, where I just did not feel great. I had bags under my eyes. It was pretty soon after making that change. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going all protein for a week. Told my son, I was like, And I'm not prone to that. I don't do a lot of fasts or cleanses or whatever. Yeah. That wasn't my usual jam. And that's what kind of inadvertently tripped me into it. On an interesting side note, my oldest sibling, my brother, he had inadvertently discovered the same thing like in January of that year. Neither of us discussed it with each other. He lives in Florida. I'm in Arizona. And it wasn't until like August where my mother said, "Oh, I think you're doing the same thing Jay's doing." And then the two of us talked and both of us feel sleeping better. Weight like fell off. And our bodies and minds just have been working in a level that we were used to operating at a younger age. So it's been really great.
Did you cut out certain foods?
Yes. Yeah.
Any categories specifically?
Yes. I can't believe I'm sharing this on my own podcast. I actually
Thank you, by the way. I don't want to make you uncomfortable.
No. I went strict carnivore for a solid 6 months. So just meant anything I had was from an animal.
Yep. No grains, no plants.
None. And I was very strict for a solid 6 months. Once I realized like how good I felt.
Did you slightly start reintroducing some of those?
I did, yes. So now I'd say I'm more animal-based. And I was always lacto-ovo-carno, right? So I would have eggs, dairy, limited dairy. It had to be like heavy cream, pure cheese, like not with all the stuff I love, by the way, because I'm a foodie. Yeah. Right? If it just plain cheese, it went really simple and really, really simple for a solid 6 months. And it was amazing. I know it's not for everyone.
You're very lucky. You're very lucky because one, you understood and found out what could help. But two is you were able to make that change. So I have a friend who's Jain and he can't eat based on religion, 90% of the things that you resulted to. So the point there is, once again, sometimes you need an alternative when you might not have.
That's right. That is right. So I am very lucky. I live that every day, feel very blessed. So when I think about longevity, and you guys are based out of the Los Angeles area, I know
we have employees across the country, but yes.
So I know that UCLA has had really in-depth longevity studies going on. I became aware of them around 10 years ago. I believe it was going on long before that. One of the things that I learned about from a friend that was part of those studies, not as working there, they were making a connection between balance, very simple balance, and longevity, and actually living that healthy, vibrant life longer. And is that anything that you all have discovered in your overall developing that healthy, longer
Mm.
life?
And when you say balance, just to clarify, you mean a work life and life balance, or what type of balance specifically?
Physical balance.
You mean like
So,
actual,
yes,
understood,
like
vertigo, physical
like being
balance?
able to
Great
stand on one
question.
foot.
Great question. So we don't integrate that in any of our current
Hmm.
protocols or best practices or recommendations, but I have seen a lot of those studies leading to correlation. And of course, actually the degradation of balance that happens as you age. So it's one of those things that go back to what's the best way to implement. Well, first of all, which protocols can you implement that will have 80 to 90% of the benefit, right? So how do you prioritize? Because also if you overwhelm someone with too many
Oh,
options,
yeah. Yeah,
then they'll not want to do any of them.
that's right.
So finding and prioritizing the highest and best output is also something that is a constant challenge, because in the perfect world, everyone would be, we would be sharing everything and they would be rigorously following these plans and protocols, but that's not reality.
Right.
But I do think that there are a number of studies that are looking into not only balance, but grip strength. I don't know if you saw
Yes.
that too. So there's
Yes.
a
Grip
high
strength
correlation with grip strength and aging and or mortality ages.
and
So
hip flexibility. I think there's something very particular about hips.
correct. So more specifically, bone density and loss translated for women oftentimes post-menopause into hip fractures, which then
Hmm.
translated to mortality incidences.
Right.
So unbeknownst and without the intention, the removal of this core HRT therapy where
Hmm.
appropriate translated to an increased mortality, not a decrease. The decrease was an attempt to perhaps avoid breast cancer, and
That's right.
they inferred the data wrong, and in an absolute, there was no material variance in any capacity for breast cancer. So on the flip side, though, by eliminating it, you started having all these issues. So correct bone density, hip fractures, all these translate to sooner, earlier mortality incidences and are the contra to longevity and healthy aging. Maintaining muscle, tremendously
Right.
important. Grip strength, balance, all these, sleep, and
Yep.
also mental health, right? So to suggest that there isn't a correlation between mental health and age. Are you familiar with blue zones?
Yes.
Yeah. I think we have one here in California, but I look at like Italy's and Japan's, and a lot of the similarities are deep familial culture and the role that plays. Like some of these longest living populations and communities are alcohol drinkers, cigarette smokers,
Right.
and their ability through happiness and a deep sense of community, and also, of course, the food that they consume, the combination of that has translated to some of the oldest living populations. So I do believe that mental health is completely correlated to healthy aging as well.
I agree with you entirely. I think that is a core component. And then that I'm intrigued by what we're facing in the US or North America right now of the loneliness epidemic that
Community
is,
is so important.
yeah,
So we started with community, right? So we didn't start with ads or anything. We started by boots on the ground, being there, hearing people's stories. And, this, for all of us, this is deeply personal. And
right,
so our goal and hope is that we're creating a deep sense of community for those that need it. And even our health coaches, I can't begin to tell you how often folks utilize that as a resource outside of health, right? Or it's just someone to talk to. And
right,
I do believe that I don't know that there's kind of peeling back what social media has done for the sense of loneliness and feeling inadequate, and
hmm,
like look at everyone's Instagram lives when in reality their lives are likely nothing like that.
right,
I don't know that there's a backwards, like I don't know how the pendulum swings backwards, but
right,
I do think that you can try to make people feel comfortable being who they are, supportive and being there for them. My biggest message is to stop the aggressive negativity. Is like, that's the bigger, I think they're correlated, the loneliness and this, but I think there's something that's just really blown up with hating certain people or
right,
create and the popularity they're in, and you feel like if you're not welcome if you don't join the hate.
right, right.
It's um it's troublesome. And that hate translates to other people feeling fear and never feeling comfortable. So, I don't know. We could do everything that we can. And our goal is to build a sense of community where none of these things matter. But we also are realistic in understanding that, that's not everyday life. And, people still have this tremendous sense of loneliness. And I don't,
Right.
that's an issue that I really want to solve. I don't have the answer.
I also would love to solve that and don't have the answer.
Well, it's really interesting, right? So the Gen Zers, you'll see something like of the Gen Zers under the age of 25, 30% or more haven't spoken to a woman in person, or some crazy stats, right? Like that are male. The lack of human interaction in the way that we know it is, maybe is it better parenting or better school system, like better there's something here.
There's something.
It's not where
in
I'm
our spare
focused.
time, Danny. We need
Exactly,
to work on this and continue.
We'll solve that problem.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel like even you and I having this conversation together, and anyone who's listening to us at this point in the conversation, I do think that helps because you know, it sounds like such an overused cliche, but if one more person hears us and thinks, I'm not crazy, there is something real there. What else could I do? What small change could I make? I don't know. Maybe we are helping to at least contribute to awareness of it just by having this conversation.
I'll say this for all those that are listening at this point. If there's someone that you know, that you admire, that you think is cool, that makes you feel like you have to promote hate or make other people feel bad, you should think about if they're the right person to admire and if they are in fact cool. Because I'll tell you, for every one of those, there's an actual, what I perceive to be a cool person out there that would never tolerate it. So
Right.
It's really acknowledging who you admire and that there are other people out there with better values, and you should set the standard for yourself higher because you'll never benefit. You're making yourself unhealthy, and you'll never benefit from other people feeling pain.
That's right. Yeah, it's not. That is, what is that saying of hate or vengeance feelings or judgmental feelings? You're trying to poison someone else by taking it yourself. It's
100%.
It's not going to work. And as you said, if it causes someone else pain, then it's just a lose-lose overall.
I do believe, I think you talk about it on your podcast, is manifesting, right? And kind of the things that entrepreneurs or others do to manifest. I think if you spend a lot of your time manifesting hate, you'll see it play out in your life as well.
Absolutely. It'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Danny Rudyak, this has been fascinating, and I could actually talk to you for hours. I just love the mission and the passion that you and your co-founders are creating, and especially with that sense of community as the foundation. So yeah, it's awesome that you're going to have a network of doctors across the country and accessibility and these prescriptions that are compounded specifically for individuals, equality, security, all of that. But the sense of community, I think, is actually everything. Yeah. Right. Even, by the way, it even sounds like a great sense of community between the health coaches, you guys, the doctors. Right. I'm sure a lot of the pharmacists are probably local or regional pharmacists. And it sounds like you even have a community within the community. And I just think that's so key right now. And we are living longer, and I personally hope to live healthily longer, not just longer for the sake of another day, but to enjoy and be robust.
That's the key, right? Is to what end, right? It's not just the age. It's not the chronological age. You want to be cognizant. You want to be physical. What life is it if you're 120 years old, strapped to a bed at a hospital, relying on a ventilator to breathe with no mobility?
Right.
That's not longevity just because you hit a certain age target. Yeah. Healthful aging is equally, if not more important. If you can live out those to the same age, but live out those last years much more healthily, much more active with your grandchildren.
Right.
That's a massive win.
Massive win. Well, thank you for making that happen. And also thank you for sharing your own personal story. I'm thrilled for you.
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. And I'm thrilled for your fiance and that you're reclaiming your own health while you're helping impact the health of so many others. So make sure you go to ReadyRx.com if you want to learn more about anything that Danny is working on and the co-founders are working on, and see what's possible for you. And this is U.S. only, or U.S. and Canada?
At this time, U.S. only.
U.S. only. Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you for being our guest, Danny.
Thank you for having me, Bridget.
And if you're listening to this podcast, wherever you're consuming it, links to connect with Danny will be in the description. I'd love it if you could leave a comment and tell us how long you want to live and how healthily you want to do it.